now I'm still gonna go through and have to check the audio and everything to make sure that everything's coming through on the sound, so that we know that we're being heard in the stream.
Okay.
I'm being
We're live. So we're live now. All right.
well, now we are, yeah, but not like not when it comes to like what's going to be on the actual uh, episode, because eventually I'll edit that out, and like
Okay.
this part right here, and then we'll have a introduction and an ending.
Okay.
So
Well, hello, folks. Whoever's tuning in already. Um,
we'll see. This is the messed up part. Like, this is Rumble Studios, right? And you'd think that since it's Rumble Studios, it would be the first one to kick in with live stream, but no, it's not.
YouTube kicks in first.
X actually kicks in before both of them.
Mm.
It's that's the crazy part.
So it
And,
all connects to Rumble Studio. Is that how it works?
well, I mean, yeah. Well, Rumble actually has the only setup where you can just straight up freaking
Multi-stream.
you can multi-stream and everything to other platforms, and you don't have to use your OBS or anything.
I think I can zoom into this.
You can just do it right there on. There we go.
Should be able to see the messages now.
Yeah, I just saw it. There we go. Rumble's finally up. See, when you start talking shit about them, that's when
They fix it up.
yeah. So everything is everything's good on Rumble, X, D Live. I'm going to Twitch now. Twitch is up and going. Sounds good. Kick is up and it's going. Let me let me find out what's going on with.
I can also. I made this script that I can scrape Rumble chats and I can like live view it in my terminal.
Mhm. It'd be pretty cool if we can get Tan in here though, because it's like it's very rare I get a chance to have Tan on Wonderful World of Weirdness, because he's not into all that weird shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so
No, it would be. He was in the chat just before.
yeah, I know. Well, see, he's got a curiosity, but he doesn't like freaking. He won't give in to the freaking to the dark side. You know what I'm saying? He's a good Catholic boy.
Well,
Well, I mean, you know what
we're
I'm
not
talking.
asking him to, are we?
Well, I mean, I don't know. You know, like he called me out on my Praetorian thing. He actually looked it up. He thinks that I'm like the Christian Slayer and shit.
I don't think so. Surely not.
I came up with the name Praetorian for my channel because freaking usually whenever it came to assassinating the Roman emperors, they would always it was really they didn't think of it as really good to freaking just allow an assassin outside of their community to do it. So they would hire a member of the Praetorian to do it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought
So
they were meant to be the protectors of the emperor.
well, they are, but it was for the elites in the Roman Empire. If they wanted to kill the emperor, they usually it was expected of them to use a Praetorian soldier to do it.
Oh, okay. Well, it kind of makes sense. They'd have the access. So. Um,
Mhm.
I but Julius Caesar was killed by his the 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 other, what do you call them, politicians around him, right?
Yeah, well, that's according to the plays. Shakespeare
Yeah.
made it that really popular,
Okay.
so that's where most of that comes from. So let me mute this, and I'm gonna put one of your cool songs on. so that people can enjoy Mr. Robot's cool songs.
All right.
You,
I saw you played my like redacted version the other day. That was a surprise.
well, this one's gonna be for since you're on here. I'm gonna put this one on so that you can listen to it.
Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Thrust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Thrust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles. Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. And if Mr. Robot rolled and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Here is an exercise demonstrating the union of in at the end of words. Dividing and gliding and sliding and falling and brawling and sprawling and driving and driving and striving. Dividing and gliding and sliding and falling and brawling and sprawling and driving and driving and driving. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. 30,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles. Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Hardly had his Hail Highness heard the easy hedgehog when he hit the humming bee by the hunter who had horrible beetles in the human hall. I love to hear the horse's hard iron hooves go hammer, 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 hammer on the easy highway. I hit my horse hard. I'm going around to hunt up hogs. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter, is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, thistle sifter.
Was that the end of it? I have to give some credit where credit is due. The original of that was made by an Australian dance and techno group from Melbourne, Australia, called Sonic Animation from the 90s. I just sort of like revamped it up. It's a classic song though. Theophilus Thistler.
Is there any music? I can't hear any music.
Oh, Yeah, no, it stopped now.
Ah, okay.
Welcome, Tan. Tan the man.
Hey, gents. I'm just running about doing errands, but I thought I'd check in.
Sweet. Yeah, no, we really want you here, man. We need your input.
Yeah, and someone for you guys to bash.
That's Mark's role.
Mark, though. Mark doesn't bash anybody.
No,
Where
no,
is he
no. He's
today?
there to be bashed. You know, he's the
Oh,
Brit.
I see. Oh, I see. I see.
But how's things going
Where
over
is he?
there?
Yeah, that's good. We're busy in Easter celebration.
Nice. I'm being a hermit this Easter. But I
A
don't think I'm.
hermit. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're a loner. This distancing yourself from
from
society.
pretty much, pretty much. I
Right.
try to get out of
Okay.
my room once a week to go shopping and stuff, but I've just been focusing on programming and stuff at the moment. You know.
Yeah, being very productive then, I guess.
Yeah, it feels well. I should do a bit more of my study, but I've been working on some Telegram bots and stuff like that last couple of
Okay,
days.
okay, good.
Yeah,
What about matrix bots? You can throw it on to this
yeah, I
chat
might
room.
give it a try. I might give it a try. Um,
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind making one that just bans spammers, auto ban spammers,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
something like that.
So is the studying that you're doing, it's like self-studying, or is there a program or a
No,
course?
I'm doing a course at the moment, and
All right, that's cool.
I I have to work on incident response for cybersecurity incidents.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Using AI?
No, at the moment we're just doing like the documentation on like
Oh,
what protocols to follow, official stuff like
wow.
that.
All right. Are
Um,
you looking to get an official certification of some sort?
yeah, I'll get a certification and then hopefully I
You
can put
get.
it in my resume if it looks good
Yep,
and
that's
go look
right.
for jobs. Yeah. I spoke to a guy that works in cyber a couple of days ago, and he's like, "Oh no, just go around testing people's network security. If you find a flaw, tell them about it, and they might hire you straight away." I'm like, "That's a good idea."
Okay,
Are
I'm
you,
back.
are you learn? Are you learning about some pen testing tools? Penetration
Yeah,
testing tools.
I've always been into that, even before studying it. So,
Okay. But are they teaching you any useful tool?
a few. I feel like I already
Okay.
knew a fair bit. I
Ah,
feel like I
okay.
learned more on my own, to be honest.
Ah. Well,
But the
which means you will really
certification helps.
excel. It
Now,
means you really excel at that course.
now,
Uh,
now, before we start, I'm gonna let you two know that I am gonna go scroll back up, and I'm gonna keep note
Rebecca. Hey, Roger.
all hello on all of the chat that you guys did on Element. Okay.
All right.
I
About what are we? Oh, we're talking about God. Are we talking about God here? We can piggyback.
That's
Piggyback from,
Well, let's give it a broader name like metaphysics a little
well,
bit.
actually,
or the
and
science of God. Was
cosmology.
that guy streamed on his ex stream last night? He's one of the ex co-founder of Minds, right? What's his name? I forgot.
Well, this is technically called the Cosmic Weave. This is what the episode is, but we're getting into the conversation that you guys had too, because I think
Can
that
you can
that
you
was
introduce the topic a little bit, Roger?
well for me. I mean, I'll be discussing the stuff that I've been doing my research on here lately, but really I want to open it up to where you guys can kind of go over some of the stuff you were talking about too, because you guys are
Hmm.
bringing up some pretty good input and stuff. And I honestly think that the stuff I've found out is pretty solid. To be honest with you, I don't think that any religious group could disagree with it. You know what I mean? It has a lot of stuff based in fact. So
You hear that,
Okay.
Dan? Challenge.
I want to see how it stands up with your conversation. So you
All
know
right. Well, it's interesting because we're all coming from a slightly different angle, so
Yep.
it'll be interesting.
exactly. And I've been wanting to have Tan on here for the longest time because he's pretty solid in his religious beliefs. You know what I'm saying? I've been telling people on Wonderful World of Weirdness that I want to have some people with religious background on, you know, to kind of give their perspective. So this this isn't
Yeah.
So
the Praetorian.
for people listening, Roger is coming from a sort of scientific background position, whereas Tan is coming from a religious Christian perspective, and I'm coming from a mixture of
Agnostic.
both of those really. Plus, I come from, I would say mine is more of a sort of shamanic, spiritual um, perspective background. You know, so
All right.
Okay, so
That's fair.
let me do my imaginary countdown in my head, and then I will start the
Oh crap! All these good stuff that we did, and you didn't even start.
Well, it's streaming right now. It's just I want to make it to where it'll be the official beginning when I do the edits. It is on
All
stream.
right. Okay. So you introduce the topic of what we're going to talk about, and then
Actually, I'll do the countdown
the
out
backgrounds.
loud, and then I'll let Mr. Robot do the introduction because he likes to do that.
Hello,
all right,
Sal.
I can.
Sound good?
Yep.
How about you, Miss Tan? You cool with that?
Sure. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. I just got
Okay.
a call coming in.
So I'll do the countdown out loud instead of by myself, and I'll let Mr. Robot after I'm done doing the countdown just do the introduction. So
Cool.
three, two, one, now.
Welcome, folks, to Untethered.
No, not
And oh wait, sorry, Cosmic Weave. I'll do it again. So, welcome, folks, to the Cosmic Weave. Today we have a panel of people that are going to discuss the origins of the universe and the general our general perspectives on the cosmology of how um, God and consciousness and metaphysics sort of arise. So we're going to each give our separate viewpoints on it and generally discuss where we come from. So enjoy. Roger,
all
how
right.
would you like to approach it?
Well, first, I wanted to mention that last night or yesterday was Good Friday, and this started a really interesting conversation on our chat, which I finished up this morning from doing uploads to Rumble, which I had done on there and had finished it up, and I went on to the chat. I was getting ready to go to bed, but I wanted to check and make sure if I missed anything, and there was you, Mr. Robot, and Tan, both who are here having a conversation about Good Friday, and I went to bed and I woke up and apparently there was over 500 freaking chat notifications on Element where you guys had like this really extensive conversation about it. So I figured I would get involved in it. So after that happened, I just finally said, you know, you guys are welcome to come onto the show and kind of put your 2 cents into uh, the conversation on the cosmic weave and kind of go over what you guys were discussing. So that was basically the gist of it. So
Can you define for us your like what the cosmic weave is as a channel, and like how that sort of segues into what we're talking about?
well, first of all, you said mine is like from a scientific point of view, and it's not really from a scientific point of view. It's kind of a blended uh, point of view that is it has spiritual principles as well as scientific principles. But these spiritual principles, they go all the way back. Like there's things that are written in religious texts that trace back to even before what we consider freaking modern day religions. Okay, and when I say modern day religions, I'm talking about Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, even. All right, these are, and the Muslims too. All of them have these belief systems that have been incorporated into them from even before they were around. Okay, and there's also things that are in these religious texts that are actually something that can be related to when it comes to science, you know. So I kind of, the cosmic weave is basically um, things about religion and spirituality that can actually be freaking related to science, everyday science, and what we call science. So that's kind of what it's all about.
Well, it's
So
interesting to me. Sorry, you go.
literally, cosmic weaves means how the universe is weaved into existence
Right.
from both but from all aspects of science and religion, and religion from all all aspects, all different traditions of faith, I guess. How we come up, or how we were revealed such truths about the universe. Is that right?
Yep.
I think that's a key word there is truth,
Mhm.
because really all these different perspectives, science and religion, etc., are paradigms that we use to try and understand truth. Okay. And ultimately, if you think like logically about it, there is one truth. We're just trying to interpret that truth through different lenses of understanding.
Mhm.
And when you go back to like ancient Egypt, they didn't see a separation between science and religion. They saw it all as one thing. And I find it interesting that now that we're investigating like, quantum physics and the structure of the universe, like metaphysics and physics are sort of starting to blend, and we're starting to discover that some of these things that we thought were mythology are turning out to be true. So we're getting back to that point where like things are starting to unify into a singular truth, or like more of a singular truth.
Right.
Like a unified truth.
Did you say how
So
did you?
did we introduce ourselves?
No, not yet. Would you guys like to
Okay, I think
introduce
we
yourselves?
went too far into it without introduction.
Well,
Introduction, I think.
Mr. Robot gets excited about this stuff. He gets really excited. So I don't ever want to interrupt him when he gets excited because he says,
Okay, hello folks. My name is Mr. Robot. I'm our token hacker in the group, and I tend to be the one that tries to always break out of conventional paradigms and such. So I stir the pot sometimes, but I do it out of love. So
he's a
you
lover. He's a lover. He,
He's a
he
lover.
Yeah, we call him the Australian lover.
These
I
Australian love a boy.
love everything and everyone. So yeah,
That's right.
because I know we're all one. That's why.
So what I've found here is once Tan came into the chat and started stirring the pot, he brought that video in that he had watched, and I know what happened there. He heard it, and he got stirred with the spirit, and Mr. Robot jumped in on it, and he started talking to him, and it eventually came to talking about Jesus rose from the dead, and he appeared to his disciples in spirit form and said, "Peace be to you, my peace I give you." And they all
Wow,
marveled.
he appears in bodily forms, not just spirit.
Well, this is what Mr. Robot said.
Yeah,
So,
Mr. Robot.
Now,
so
I
mind you,
mean, he got
this is from a Gnostic text that was found in the Nag Hammadi, in Qumran in the Nag Hammadi
in
library.
Qumran.
What do they call it?
Which
Dead Sea
Gnostic? Is
Scrolls.
it the Gospel of Judas?
No. It is the Sophia of Jesus Christ.
yes, and
So
Sophia is
it's
an interesting conversation too, by the way, because when you take a look at Sophia, you'll find out that Constantine, when he moved to freaking Constantinople, actually built one of the first monasteries, which was Sophia, um, and that's something that I do find interesting when it comes to that. Um, so
Well, Sophia just
But
means
wait, before we
wisdom.
go
So
on, you guys
yeah,
haven't
Sophia,
introduced yourselves yet. So
Sophia of Jesus. Yeah, yeah. You finish your introduction, Robot.
I have. You go, Tan. Over to
All
you.
right. Hello, everyone. I'll introduce myself. My name is Tan. This is my Tan Hai Tran in full. I'm joining this for the first time, and this is the second episode. Is it, Roger?
well,
Uh,
yeah, this is the second episode for the Cosmic. No, the third
yeah.
episode.
So this whole thing is new to me too. This cosmic weave idea. So I think I'm just here to mostly listen in, but my background is in Christianity, so I'm probably gonna be most likely offering the perspective of a Christian and our beliefs of how the universe works and things like that.
All right. Now, with that conversation that you two were just about to get into, what is your guys' take on that? I mean, um, when it comes
Can you
to
introduce yourself, Roger?
no, I'm good. You did.
Okay.
Wait, wait,
Well,
Roger, don't do you have some talking points that you want to go through? Maybe you just go through them first, and then we can discuss about them, and then talk about the chat topics. Or did you have not?
Well, see, for me, I've already got one episode set up to where it's already on there. So if anybody really wants to find out my perspectives before this episode, they just have to go to the previous ones. You know what I mean? Um,
Okay, so what is the main topic of
now,
today's
now,
episode?
for what you guys were talking about, I think what would really what I've already discussed, which would be important, would be with you specifically, it would be the freaking or the first few pages of the book of Genesis. To be honest with you,
Mm,
I think that's probably the most profound part of the entire Bible. To be honest,
okay, so we're talking about God in this episode.
the creation,
I mean, creation. Okay.
yes,
I
and
think Tan should go first because then we can get sort of like the orthodox view on it and go from there, build on it. Um, I've actually just translated like one of the oldest Greek Bibles, so I'm gonna see if I can pull it up and see if I can get that Genesis chapter. But if you want to
You
just talk
trans
about,
you translated a Bible from Greek to English?
yeah, the oldest Greek I could find. So
Now,
Okay.
if you want,
Well,
if
what
you
is your background in Greek, Mr. Robot?
No, I was using AI.
Ah, I
I
see.
coded an
Okay,
AI that can do it, so
I
it's quite
see.
good actually.
All right, man. Is the translation resembling anything that been translated before?
It does, but there's
Yeah.
interesting words that get like translated in multiple ways, you know? So like I find like the modern versions of the Bible kind of like oversimplify certain bits, and there's like more context in some words than normal English can sort of give you in one translation, if you will. So that's why I find it interesting to like look at the old ones again. It's because it does kind of change over time slightly.
Okay.
But
Uh,
what I want to know, Tan, is what brought you to be interested in spirituality and stuff like that initially, and how did you come
mhm.
about learning about your point of view from it?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. Um, so I fell into religion by circumstance. All right, if you guys have viewed my interview with Rogers in the past, you would know that I came to Canada by way of Japan as a refugee, and while at Japan in Japan at the refugee center, I ran into some Catholic missionaries, Franciscan Catholic missionaries, and I just started listening into going into this mass celebration, which at that time I had no idea what a mass is, but I heard them talking about God and Jesus in passing. I was curious, but it wasn't my intention to join the Catholic Church. Uh, by happenstance, my dad was joining. Uh, he was becoming a Catholic there, and his story is something else that probably another long story to get into. But so then I just joined because of him. The dad joins the religion, so the children gets pulled along. So I was just I became a Catholic out of happenstance, basically. Then when I came to Canada, continued to practice it, but like half-heartedly, um, not in any form of you would say fervor as a believer would be. But when I got into university, I started becoming more curious about my faith, and I needed to learn. I wanted to learn more about my religion than than what would be required normally, meaning going to church on Sunday, listening to the sermon, and once a week doing that. But I was more curious from uh, um, intellectual point of view, if you could call it that, because being in university, I had access to a whole library of old Christian writing. So I started taking religious courses in university. I studied the New Testament. Took a course on the New Testament. Old Testament is too much to go through, but then I started reading the early church fathers writing, like Saint Augustine's, Saint Thomas Aquinas, um, and all those great people. So they had a philosophy library in the University of Waterloo where I went, and then I was just spent there. Um when I'm not doing other homework, I'm just in that philosophy library, drooling over old ancient Christian writings. So I learned about the life of the early Christians, and that's how it got me more interested in my faith and in my church.
That's actually pretty good. And before we go on, I want to make a plug for myself. If you guys want to hear Tan's story, you can find that. And I don't usually share this channel, but it's on the Storyteller. I have it on my channel for YouTube. I believe his story is also going to be put out. I can't tell you exactly when it's scheduled on Rumble, but it will be out too on there because I'm transferring everything over there. So if you're on Rumble, you'll be able to hear a story on there. But you can hear it ahead of time if you go to YouTube and check it out on the
Yes.
Storyteller.
See, I did a plug for you on purpose there, Roger.
Right.
Right?
And
Yeah.
let me also add that was the well, it's a tie between you and Bob Dub, but like you two had the two best stories that anybody's ever told to me. So just so people know that it's a really great thing because he sat down and he just told his life story and that was it. And I know Tan didn't think it was as good as what I did, but it was actually a pretty good story. So check it out. Well, Mr. Robot said his story too, but it wasn't really all that too like this.
Okay, let's carry on.
Okay. So,
And market right now, picking up some stuff, so you might hear some noise from me.
all right. Now,
But
is Mr. Robot still in the room, or is he?
Yeah.
Okay. So, this whole topic
Do you-
that you wanted me to come up with something to kind of start it out. Now I can, but I'm only going to share like maybe two paragraphs of what I've got started out. Okay, this starts out
Okay.
my whole cosmic weave thing.
Okay.
Okay, so now before there was stars and planets and light, uh, and time even. Okay, there was an endless void. It was a vast nothingness where the universe was slumbering. It was waiting for a spark to awaken it. This was a time when space and time were indistinguishable. However, there was a single constant force, the formless, timeless essence of what would later become creation, destruction, and transformation. Now, cosmic energy existed in perfect tension between the opposing forces of life and death. Every possibility, every form of life that could be created, and every structure that could ever be dismantled resided here. It was the building block of existence, but also its undoing. From it, entire galaxies would later be born, only to collapse again into dust. In this place, the universe had not yet found its rhythm, but within its heart, it shimmered, waiting for the moment when it would emerge to shape what we would eventually call reality. So that's basically how the cosmic weave that I'm doing starts out. So you can take what you want from that part and go from there.
sounds similar to the Genesis account, isn't it?
Exactly. And see, before we go any further with that, let me point this out. That story traces back even further than the Jewish beliefs or even the Babylonians. Well, I won't say the Sumerians, but the Babylonians even. You know, these are old Indo-European traditions even, you know.
A bit later, I will share the Gnostic version of that after Tan does his. But before we go on, I just want to show you guys. This is the Bible that I translated. Or I don't know if you can call it a Bible. It's technically a part of the Septuagint, which is like the Old Testament. It's called
Yep.
Novum Instrumentum Omniae, which is a Latin Greek version of the Old Testament, and it was published in the 1500s by Desiderius Erasmus of Rotterdam. He was a priest and a philosopher, and he basically went through a tremendous amount of effort to take up to 300 copies of like these ancient Christian texts and basically translate them into Latin and Greek, which is really useful if you have two languages at the same time of the same text to compare to for translation and stuff like that. So I'll show you what it looks like. This is the book. You can see it looks old. And when you go down, once it loads,
Well, Saint Jerome originally was the one that translated the Hebrew Bible into Latin.
so you can see here it has the Latin on the right and the ancient Greek on the left. And you know how they say it's all Greek to me? It's because it looks like alien writing, man. Like, it's crazy. I was very surprised that the AI could actually decipher that, but it takes a lot of work because I had to like manually crop this section out on each page. And anyway, so I'll read the Genesis section just like quickly. So, in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. In him
Wait.
was life.
Robot,
And
that's the Gospel of John. That's a New Testament. It's not an
oh
Old
yeah,
Testament.
yeah. Sorry, you're right. You're totally right. This is the New Testament. Yeah, my bad. It is the New Testament.
So
Um,
you need
do you want me to go on?
Well, I mean,
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
no, go ahead.
In him was life, and the life was the light of men, and the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John, and this man came for a witness to bear witness to the light, that all through him might believe. Okay, I probably won't go on because it doesn't really get into the metaphysics. I might have to bring.
Yeah. Wait,
Maybe.
because this is the New Testament. It would. Do you have a version of the Old Testament, of the translation of the Book of Genesis? Maybe if we go
Not
back
yet.
there.
Not yet. But I can bring up one. Maybe you should do it. Do you want to read the New Testament, the Old Testament?
I can't do it right now because I'm
Let me quickly check. I think I have the Septuagint.
I'm mobile. When I get back home, I will be able to do it. But
Yeah. Here we go. I do have it. This is the Septuagint Genesis. Okay. What is the history of the Old Testament? That comes from like Hebrew, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
Hebrew.
it's
That's the original language.
It supposedly does, but there's no surviving.
Very little.
No, there is. Well, actually, the Dead Sea
The Dead Sea Scrolls. Yeah.
Yes. But before they were found, there was no evidence of it being in Hebrew. That's the one thing that I've always brought up too. Like whenever you look at a lot of the texts are usually written in Greek, and there's claims that was translated from Hebrew to Greek.
Hebrews.
There's no surviving evidence of that.
Well, I looked at
if you follow the church history, Saint Jerome translated the Latin Bible was translated by Greek is only predominantly written the language of the New Testament, right? Because but the ancient texts are in Hebrew, or I don't know if it's old Hebrew even. Right?
I don't know if it still exists though. Is what Roger's saying.
I'm talking about like the actual texts. Like, see, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for the actual text that was written at that time period. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it's good to have a reprint and everything, but like, there's no surviving actual text to
because they wrote
prove.
it on papyrus back then, I think,
Right.
and a lot of that is like degraded now. So
Yeah, but then what about the Dead Sea Scrolls? Like
Now
some part
that's
of that.
where,
okay, so
yes,
I
exactly.
looked at this the other day. There's three main languages in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it's Aramaic, Greek, and Hebrew. And
Right.
there's only like fragments of it that they found, you know. So like, it's hard to say any one of them was the original or anything.
Mm.
Yeah, but they have deciphered, like when they cross compare that to the whole body of all the other texts and manuscripts they found, they have like consolidated it down to like proper Gnostic texts and stuff, which is I like reading that stuff because
But
it's more in depth than the traditional Bible. It's like I reckon
did
it's
they do
like
any
Jesus.
carbon dating of the papyrus? I'm pretty sure they did,
Uh,
right?
they did. They would have. You can.
And they can probably tell which one is the oldest written scroll.
Uh,
But yeah, maybe the original Septuagint, the original Hebrew Bible was probably copied over by the scribes times, right? Because the
Hmm.
so
papyrus degrades
carbon
and
dating of the Dead
and
Sea Scrolls provided several key dates. Initial tests in the 1950s of Qumran Cave 1 gave a date range of 167 BCE to 233 CE. So,
Right.
what's that, like 300 odd years? Um, More
okay.
recent tests gave a more narrow date. Um,
Can you look up what is the lifetime of a papyrus scroll?
how long can survive? In what conditions? In a
In yeah,
cave?
in ancient conditions, I guess.
But like, if it's like open to the elements, it can degrade in a few years.
Ancient history. No, what I mean normal, like inside a cave, maybe.
In,
But no, but
in,
I mean, even I'm talking about in normal, regular use where the Jews will be carrying those scrolls all over wherever they go, right? And
yeah,
so over time they gotta degrade, and so they need to be copied over,
Yeah.
yeah.
maybe many times. Yeah.
Well, these ones that were in the cave have clearly survived for 2,000 years. So if they're in like mint conditions, 2,000 years is probably the max because it has significantly degraded. Um, but normally when it's in used, it's like hundreds of years, maybe like 250 years, something like that. So yeah, it would have had to be copied like many, many times. That's why the Dead
Yep.
Sea
Many
Scrolls are
times.
so interesting because they haven't been copied so many times, so we can go back and see what has changed over time and stuff like that. Um, but anyway, the Septuagint. Do you know about the Septuagint,
Yeah.
Tam?
Yep. 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 That's
What
the
do you know about it?
original version. Isn't that that is the version that Saint Jerome
It's the Greek
translated
Old
to Latin.
Testament. The
Oh,
translation of the 70 and abbreviated as LXX. It is the earliest
70.
existent Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible from its original biblical Hebrew. The full Greek title derives from the story recorded in the letter of Aristeas to Philocrates that the laws of the Jews were translated into the Greek language at the request of Ptolemy II. Okay,
Hmm.
that was 285 BC, which is pretty bloody old. Um, so yeah, that's before the
It's
time of Jesus,
it's
right?
not really actually old. That's actually pretty modern. That would be the
Well,
hit.
it's
That,
old for
that
a
would be
Christian
the
text.
hit New Age. that would be hip New Age philosophy when it comes
Come
to
on, Roger.
when it
Come
comes
on,
to
Roger.
ancient history and stuff, man. Like,
It's all relative. It's all relative. But when we're talking about modern religion, it's pretty like
well, I mean, that's really
Especially-
what modern religion is. It's the hip New Age philosophy of religion.
yeah, basically.
You know what I mean? These ideas come from more ancient, older texts. Like, whenever people bring up the concept of the primordial ooze, okay, that goes way back. That goes way back before even Gaia was thought of. Okay, the primordial void.
Was that not Greek? Or
Yeah,
what?
it's actually Indo-European. Um, Greek is a part of the Indo-European language group, and so's everything from Europe all the way over into India. So you've got a lot of those belief systems, and then it also blended down into to the Asian parts, like the uh, Near East and all that.
Yeah.
So and they are distinct language groups. Like, you do have distinct Semitic groups, but you also have freaking a blend between the two cultures where they come up with the same concepts. You know, so these ideas, they're a lot older than just the Jewish text. They go farther back. You know, and when it comes to light, what you guys were talking about, I actually wrote a little piece on that because of some stuff I found out, and what I said is it longed to be shaped. Okay, hold up. It says, rising from the depths of this vast nothingness, the primordial waters of creation began to churn in chaotic waves. It longed to be shaped, given form, but it also resisted, fearing the order that would be imposed upon it. Forms began to shimmer with the colors of the universe, reflecting the endless expanse of creation. The light of the cosmos illuminated the primordial energies that flowed through the axis mundi. So you
Where are
had
you reading? What are you reading from here, Roger?
this comes out of the concepts of the primordial ooze, and that's the beginning that you'd read about, like in the book
From
of Genesis. Okay,
from which tradition is
this
this
would
I
coming
be
don't
from?
remember no
this
who's in
would be
Genesis.
this would be this would be out of the Indo-European language group, um, and it goes all the way back. Okay, now what happened with that tradition is it didn't start with light. First, there was an empty void of nothingness, and then they started incorporating the four cardinal winds. Okay, and then there was the water, the the endless water, primordial water that was stirred because of the four cardinal winds, and out of that came the ooze that would eventually become earth. You know what I mean? So this is where all of that stems from, and then they do mention the light, but the light is the reflection, okay, of the axis Monday, which is the center of all things. Okay, and that would be the equivalence of what people today would call God.
Not to be confused with the Rex Monday, which is the demiurge from Gnostic beliefs. Um, Tan, do you want to read Genesis?
I
I've got it
can't
open.
right now. Still not yet. Can you
Oh, okay.
read? Can you read a
Okay,
few
okay.
verses of the creation? Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Uh, in the beginning, God made the heaven and the earth, yet the earth was invisible and unformed, and darkness over the abyss, and the divine wind was being carried along over the water. And God said, let light come into being, and light came into being. And God saw the light that it was good. And God separated between the light and between the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. and it came to be evening, and it came to be morning, day one. And God
Were
said,
you
"Let." Sorry.
are you reading an abbreviated version of it? I thought there was somewhere where it mentions like the spirit of God was hovering above the void,
Yeah,
above the
no, it's coming.
waters.
It's coming. Be
Okay, I
patient.
see. Okay, all right. Okay.
And God said, "Let the firmament come into being in the midst of the water, and let it be a separator between water and water." And it became so. And God made the firmament, and God separated between the water that was under the firmament and between the water that was above the firmament. And God called the firmament sky, and God saw that it was good. And it came to be evening, and it came to be morning a second day. And God said, "Let the water that is under the sky be gathered into one gathering, and let the dry land appear." And it became so. And the water that was under the sky was gathered into their gatherings, and the dry land appeared. And God called the dry land earth, and the systems of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good.
Okay, pause there for
Um,
a second. Back one verse when it was said, you read that God separate the water above the firmament and below the firmament, and the firmament was called the sky. So
yeah,
what water could be above the sky?
Now, see, this is
that's a
where
good question. So I
I can
actually think,
hold on a minute. I can kind of add on to that because I that goes into what I was writing afterwards of that when it says that bodies wove through the void with grand designs and intricate patterns. The heat of 1,000 suns flickered with the energy of creation, while the force of life ignited the spark of consciousness in the universe, bringing stars to life. Ice created
that's right.
stillness, the force of order, and the preservation. No, and preservation, shimmering with the soft blue glow. This was to be the fire of creation and the cold embrace of destruction.
Where are
That,
you
Now
reading
remember,
from, Roger?
this is all text that freaking I've pulled together from different freaking religious groups. I've
Yeah, do you
cross referenced it with Indo-European languages to find the similarities. And then
which faith tradition does this come from? This
this
do you have
comes
the
this
this
source?
this
unknown AI hallucinations.
no, it's not. As a matter of fact, this actually coincides with what you read right there.
It,
This
it does, and I just want to say, like, think about this, Tan. Like here, it's talking about the firmament before the Earth existed, right? So, what water could that be? And I believe the waters that it's talking about is actually the waters of consciousness, like the ripple of consciousness throughout the universe. And he's basically it's talking about a separator between water and water, so separation of consciousness into different distinct parts, if you will. And that becomes a lot more clear when you look at the Gnostic version of it, because it goes into a bit more detail.
and
But
I also want to add too. I have found nothing, even when it comes to this stuff about the primordial ooze. I've found nothing that indicates where this water originated from.
we'll get to that.
Right,
We'll get to that.
and I was trying to get at whether this is some indication that there might be other planets that hold water.
Okay, well, I'm not going to describe the next 7 days of creation then. I'm gonna go to the origin. There's a in the Nag Hammadi library. There's an untitled text that's later on being called "The Origin of the World," and I find this one pretty interesting. Um, it must have been translated from Aramaic or Hebrew or something. But um, can I read a little bit of it?
Yeah, go ahead. Hopefully,
So it does a little introduction. It says, Seeing that everybody, gods of the world and mankind, says that nothing existed prior to chaos, I, in distinction to them, shall demonstrate that they are all mistaken because they are not acquainted with the origin of chaos, nor with its root. Here is the demonstration. How well it suits all men on the subject of chaos to say that it is a kind of darkness, but in fact it comes from a shadow which has been called by the name darkness. And the shadow comes from a product that has existed since the beginning. It is, moreover, clear that it existed before chaos came into being, and that the latter is posterior to the first product. Let us therefore concern ourselves with the facts of the matter, and furthermore, with this product from which chaos was produced, and in this way the truth will be clearly demonstrated. After the natural structure of the immortal beings that completely developed out of the infinite, a likeness then emanated from pistis, which is faith. It is called Sophia, wisdom. It exercised volition and became a product resembling the primeval light. And immediately her will manifested itself as a likeness of heaven, having an unimaginable magnitude. It was between the immortal beings and those things that came into being after them, like blank. She, Sophia, functioned as a veil dividing mankind from the things above, which is kind of like the firmament.
Yeah.
Now, the eternal realm, aeon, of truth has no shadow outside of it, for limitless light is everywhere within it. But its exterior is shadow, which has been called by the name darkness. From it there appeared a force presiding over the darkness, and the forces that came into being subsequent to them, called the shadow, the limitless chaos. From it every kind of divinity sprouted up, together with the entire place, so that also shadow is posterior to the first product. It was in the abyss that the shadow, appeared, deriving from the aforementioned pistis, which is faith. Then shadow perceived there was nothing mightier than it, and felt envy, and when it became pregnant of its own accord, suddenly it engendered jealousy. Since that day, the principle of jealousy amongst all the eternal realms and their worlds had been apparent. Now, as for that jealousy, it was found to be an abortion without any spirit in it. Like a shadow, it came into existence in a vast watery substance. Then the bile that it had come into being out of the shadow was thrown into a part of chaos. Since that day, a watery substance had been apparent, and what sank within it flowed away, being visible in chaos, as with a woman giving birth to a child. All her superfluities flow out. Just so matter came into being out of shadow and was projected apart, and it did not depart from chaos, rather matter was in chaos, being a part of it. Now, before I go on, I just want to go back to Greek cosmogony.
Hold on a minute, because the stuff that you mentioned right there is something that kind of goes into what I want to mention too. Now,
Okay,
I
but
know.
before
No,
you
no,
do, I just want to
hold
define
hold up.
chaos.
You guys made the assumption like I used
You guys,
AI to do this. Okay. Now,
I love it. You guys
no,
are so
hold up.
excited about the topic.
The content that I'm giving you is stuff
I
that
want
I've been
I
doing
want us.
research on for like 8 years. Okay, now
Yeah.
if the things I'm reading to you is references that I took off of something that relates to this. Now Eusebius of Caesarea was
Yep.
the one who wrote freaking arguments against the pagans. Now he wrote a
Nice.
lot of he wrote a lot of things about the content that I'm talking to you about. And what happened was I've been doing research on this argument of the pagans for at least 8 years,
He's
and
he's Eusebius is the bishop of Caesarea in the third century, by the way. So
right, he was one of
uh,
the early
so we are still lingering around religious from the religious background of cosmic. Eventually, I wanted to take us to the scientific view, where
Yeah, yeah,
people like Stephen Hawkins and folks
yeah,
like
yeah. We'll
that
get there.
who,
We'll get there.
yeah, yeah. All right,
We just
good,
want to we
good,
just want to
good.
do it.
Okay,
All right.
go
So
on.
what were you going to say, Roger?
now the whole thing about what I've been discussing has to do with I turned around and I went in and I listened to his arguments, and then I went and checked out the references of all these pagan uh, sources, or that he was given, and I found out to uh, what what is against popular belief, that these things he's referring to as being evil weren't actually evil, that whatsoever. Okay, and you'll find a lot of what he was really doing is he was fighting against Hellenistic beliefs and paganism. Okay, so he was using these as references and then demonizing the actual belief systems so that he could, kind of build up the Christian faith, and make it look better. You know what I mean? These days, a lot of the resources that are out there don't even use his references anymore because they're aware of that. But he did bring up a lot of good information that could still be used, and that's what I did. I went through and I started checking out these um, pagan belief systems, and then I cross-referenced it with the Indo-European beliefs, because this is all about the Hellenistic movements that were taking place. When you hear about the Gnostics, that's actually what you're hearing. You're hearing a kind of saturation of Indo-European beliefs with Phoenician and Canaanite beliefs being incorporated into the Christian belief. Just that's basically what I wanted to say. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. I just also want to say I really like Eusebius's writings. He's for a Christian priest. He was very logical thinker, and he really wanted to discover the truth. And he really like dived deep into topics and like looked at all these different manuscripts. The amount of work that he did, I haven't seen anyone in the modern day do something on that kind of scale. It's pretty amazing. Um, I just wanted to say, like, it mentions chaos a lot here, and that comes back from the Greek sort of interpretation,
Yep.
I believe, of chaos. And when you look, like, they didn't use chaos the way we do today. Like, today we use chaos in the way that things are sort of disordered and stuff like that. But in Greek cosmogony, chaos is the cosmological void state preceding the creation of the universe in early, like, it also refers to the early state of the cosmos constituted of nothing but undifferentiated and indistinguishable matter. So that puts the previous text into a bit of perspective there, I think.
Right. And it actually is Indo-European because it goes farther back than the Greeks. You know what I mean? You're looking at a time when people believed in the cardinal direct winds, and they believed in freaking the primordial waters of the abyss. You know what I mean?
The
So
thing you got to also realize with Greek and Egyptian mythology is it comes from, well, like, according to my research, it comes from like a high state of knowledge. It was passed down to them from antiquity. And the further back you go, it seems like the more authentic and the more like true the information is. And then later on, you get philosophers that come and reinterpret and they change it over time. So, for example, with the word chaos, later on, like in the beginning, it was like the void, but then Hesiod's chaos has been interpreted as either a gaping void above the earth created when earth and sky are separated from their primordial unity. So you can see there he's already inputting his smaller cosmological view into this bigger principle. So yeah, I found that interesting.
And
But
the term primordial needs to be um, recognized too. You know what I mean? Like you'll hear the word primordial a lot if you get into this kind of research, and there's a reason why it's in there. Um, this is the primordial beginnings. This is where everything was within the void. There was nothingness. This is before there was light. There was anything. There was no stars. It was just an empty primordial void of nothingness. And then mysteriously this water appears. You know.
yeah, yeah.
So I, I, it's pretty interesting with the water concept too, because that to me that makes that a divine, something divine. You know what I mean?
So it's actually quite a complex interrelationship when you dive into the Gnostic version of it. How it has this like unknowable spirit, like original spirit that is before even matter existed, and then that eventually turns into like the first consciousness, and then the first consciousness gives birth to like two more consciousnesses, and then that those two do their own little experiments, asking for permission from the one above. And I think it was I think it was Sophia. I'm not 100% sure, but one of them decided out of this jealousy that it wanted to create its own creation without asking for permission from the power above. And that's when things went wrong. And like a bunch of these sort of what we would now call negative spirits were born into this soulless part of the universe, if you will. And
Wait, which tradition is this?
this is Gnosticism,
Gnosticism.
Gnosticism.
which is also
Eh,
actually was adopted by these people called the Bogalism, which is was a Christian neo-Gnostic dualist sect founded in the first Bulgarian Empire by the priest Bolgomil during the reign of Tsar Peter I in the 10th century. It most probably arose from the region of Kutmuchivsta, today part of Macedonia, which is where Alexander the Great came out of. But then they sort of influenced the Cathars, right? And they were the heavily persecuted Christians that eventually, the the Catholic Church kind of rooted them out eventually, but they still held on to these early Gnostic teachings, um, where they identified two creator deities. The first was the creator of the spiritual realm contained in the New Testament, while the second was the demiurge depicted in the Old Testament, who created the physical universe. The demiurge, often called Rex Mondi, or King of the World, was identified as the god of Judaism. Some Gnostic belief systems, including Catharism, began to categorize the duality of creation as a relationship between hostile opposing forces of good and evil. Although the demiurge was sometimes conflated with Satan or considered Satan's father, a creator or seducer, these beliefs were far from unanimous. Some Cathar communities believed in mitigated dualism, similar to Bolgami predecessors, stating that the evil god Satan had previously been the true God's servant before rebelling against him, while other Cathars, likely the majority over time, given the influence uh, Oh, sorry. They change their beliefs over time due to other influences, basically. Um, but I just want to read this like next little bit because this goes back to the old text on how it describes this demiurge situation, right? Um, where this kind of I believe this kind of brings us more into the sort of modern scientific situation because it can be related to like reality. Um, and when Pistis Sophia desired to cause the thing that had no spirit to be formed into a likeness and to rule over matter and over all other forces, there appeared for the first time a ruler out of the waters, lion-like in appearance, androgynous, having great authority within him, and ignorant of whence he had come into being. Now, when Epistis Sophia saw him moving about in the depth of the waters, she said to him, "Child, pass through to here," whose equivalent is Yaldabaoth. Since that day, there appeared the principle of verbal expression which reached the gods and the angels and mankind. And what came into being as a result of verbal expression, the gods and the angels and mankind finished. Now, as for the ruler of Yaldabaoth, he is ignorant of the force of Epistis, which is wisdom. He did not see her face, rather he saw in the water the likeness that spoke with him. And because of that voice, he called himself Yaldabaoth, but Ariel is what the perfect call him. For he was like a lion. Now, when he had come to the authority over matter, Pistis Sophia withdrew up to her light. When the ruler saw his magnitude, and it was only himself that he saw nothing else except for water and darkness. Then he supposed that it was he alone that existed, and was complete. There's a bit missing. Was completely by verbal expression. So I'm guessing his communication was completely by verbal expression. It appeared as a spirit moving to and fro upon the waters, and when that spirit appeared, the ruler set apart the watery substance, and what was dry was divided into another place. And from matter he made himself an abode, and he called it heaven. And from matter the ruler made a footstool, and he called it earth. See how that like ties into Genesis? So these Gnostic texts basically allude to the idea that that previous Bible that we read, the Genesis story, was actually this demiurge, Yaldabaoth, that created it. And it's part of a greater empire over which he ruled, which is in heaven, in the heavens, right? And I will later on bring that back to aliens because a big part of the sort of alien lore out there is that the reptilian beings, which has often been depicted as lion faced, and like they came out of a part of the universe that that we can't quite see from here, I suppose, and it was like separate from this part of creation, and they took over a large part, including this part. But anyway. Where shall we go from there, Roger?
So after all, huh?
Go ahead. What was you saying, Tan?
Sorry, did I not come over clearly?
I couldn't hear a word you said.
Am I clearer now?
Yeah, just repeat what you said because it didn't come through.
Okay.
Not for me.
I was just poking fun at Mr. Robot. It's alien conspiracy that they originated from the Gnostics after all.
Well, see, I mean, for me, when it comes to ufology these days, that's the thing that I seem to have an issue about. It's like all of these ufologists who believe in like aliens and remote viewing, and especially the secret space program and all that. They like to tap into old Gnostic beliefs. It's usually Gnostic beliefs, or it's the Theosophical Society that they pull their information from, and then they try to disguise it like it's actual UFO knowledge.
Mm.
When people who actually do the research can recognize it and say you're full of shit, you're just using old text to freaking.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, if it is true, I'm not saying it is, but if it is true, there's a chance that people could discover the same truth from different angles, right?
Right. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I really do get into reading this stuff. I love it. But the thing of it is let's be honest about the material and where you're getting it from. Let's not say,
Yeah, yeah, totally.
you
But
know,
here's the interesting thing, right? This is why I'm making this point, is because here's the page for Yalda Boeth. This is the
yeah,
Gnostic page. And here you can see the lion-faced being, but look at his body.
yep.
It's a serpent, right? Which is a reptile.
Now
So
he's
it's a
supposed to be
lion-headed serpent.
now he's supposed to be like a demigod, the one that was actually the ones that create the reality we know and we feel
Yeah,
and see, right?
yeah. And the
Well,
Gnostics saw reality as a bit of a trap.
in the Bible, guys, I think in the book of Daniel or somewhere like that also describes one of the angels as having like winged creature with lion's body or face or weird things like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Does the Bible?
Search,
Well,
yeah, search for it.
I always get shit when I start telling everybody that it's really odd about and this is all over the world throughout different time periods. There's always this connection between the reptile and the bird when it comes to deities. If you look through the histories and you find out about, especially in the religions and the lore, it's always about the reptilian or the birds, and then later on they started incorporating the lions, you know,
Mm,
and and,
mm.
and stuff like that. But it was always the birds and the reptilians, always. Even here,
Reptilians. Why reptilians though?
I actually know that. I just have to remember.
Maybe
Well, well,
a lineage of the original snake in the garden.
well. The thing is, there's dragon mythology all around the world, even though they weren't supposedly
Yes,
connected
especially in
throughout.
China. Yep.
Well, everywhere,
Vietnam.
South America,
The
Africa, doesn't matter where you
Yep,
go, you'll find some version of either serpent or dragon mythology, right?
yep. The
And
origin of Vietnam's myth, right, guys, is
mm,
we were founded by a dragon.
yep, yep, and South America as well, many times. So there's two possibilities, right? The one is ancient people dug up some dinosaur bones and they made some myths about it, or this ancient story is actually real, and we're only just starting to come to grips with it. But here is the part of the Bible in Ezekiel. It talks about the
Ezekiel. Yep,
yeah,
yep.
and uh, one of the cherubim reached out his hand to the fire that was among them. Wait, where's the lion part here? So each of the cherubim had four faces. One face was that of a cherub, the other face was of a human being, the third
Hmm.
face of a lion, and the fourth
There you
face
go.
of an eagle, right? So
Yeah, yep,
this kind of like comes into the shape-shifting lore again as well, which is like associated with the reptilians. And,
Nice.
and a lot of people have said that like here it says, I looked and I saw beside him the cherubim of four wheels, one beside each of the cherubim. The wheels sparked like topaz. As for their appearance, the four of them looked alike, each like a wheel intersecting a wheel. And some people say that sounds a lot like some kind of technology, some kind of ancient technology, like
Chariot.
yeah, well, it's interesting that these like
UFOs.
alien shape-shifting beings are associated with these twirling wheels within wheels. You know what I mean?
Right.
What would we call that today?
They resembles a
Angels.
UFO is what they're saying, and a lot of them they're saying that
Yeah.
these like ancient aliens theories they point that out and they say this is a UFO sighting.
And then what about that
But
part of
I
the
mean,
Bible where there's the ascension of Jesus, right? After it might have just been before he got crucified. Him and his disciples were out in the desert there, and all of a sudden Jesus just ascends into heaven, and these two
no, no,
angels,
no. Oh, that's
yeah,
after his resurrection. I thought
after.
you're talking about the what do you call it? The that time where he took the disciples up to the mount and he certainly
And they saw a bright
transformed
light.
into it's no, he's certainly transformed into full of lights, and they saw Moses and like Jesus saw him talking to Moses and all the
Yeah.
other uh, old Old Testament
So listen, this is in
fathers.
Acts 1:11 to 13, and basically it says,
Yeah, that's
Men of
after his
Galilee,
resurrection, though.
why do you stand looking into the sky?
Hmm.
Thus, Jesus, who had been taken up from you into heaven, will come
Yep.
in the same way as you have watched him go into heaven. And they returned to Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives. So, like, basically, they were out in the bush. There was a bright light, and it came and picked Jesus up through the clouds into the sky. And they all stood there just like amazed. And then all of a sudden, these
Yep.
two bright characters called Men of Gal, like these two, I don't know if
The
you could call them
angels.
angels.
Well, you
Well,
think they're
in the Bible, it
reptilians?
calls them men, but like they said, men in white gowns appeared
Hmm.
all of a sudden in the
Hmm.
desert, mind you, and then they
Hmm.
like, don't worry about Jesus, he'll come back the same way that he
Yeah,
went up into the
that's
sky.
right after his ascension. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so traditionally we believe those two men are angels, but you think they're reptilians?
No. I don't think they're reptilians. I think they're
Okay,
aliens, but they're humanoid
aliens.
aliens.
Okay, aliens. Okay,
Yeah, because you got to realize there's
could be.
different types
Could
of
no,
aliens, and like the one.
aliens could just be angels, but then angels are spiritual beings. They don't have bodies, though.
Well, aliens
So
are spiritual beings too. You know, they operate
yeah,
on a
but
higher plane of
they actually
existence.
have corporeal. Well, they have
It's
bodies,
literally just
right?
modern words for the same thing. Is you can
Okay.
literally interchange the words and it'll mean the same thing.
So
Why? What?
when it comes to
Which word?
Angels are aliens and gods
Oh, I
are
see. It
boss
means two
aliens.
things.
okay,
No, I didn't know, because aliens are actually, if they exist, they're actually physical beings. The
Yeah,
angels, they're non corporeal beings. They don't
that
have a body. Sometimes
that
they
is not
take
true.
on the,
That is not true. Like in Revelations, where it talks about the war in heaven, it talks about
Mhm.
Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon.
Yep,
Okay. Now,
the
if they
dragon
were
is
just like
Satan.
thought, if they were just thoughts, how would they fight?
They're not thoughts. They're a spiritual being, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. They don't exist in your thoughts only.
It
right.
They
it
actually
describes.
exist, but there is a war, a spiritual war in heaven. They're you mean
But,
like
but
you don't
here's
think
the
ghosts
thing.
can
Here's
fight
the
with each
thing.
other?
Here's the thing. You're assuming that heaven is some kind of ethereal place. Whereas when you look at the Gnostic text, it says heaven was made by the demiurge out of matter. Okay, so that's literally space. Space, where the
No,
planets
no.
are.
Can
Yes.
Heaven cannot be inside this universe.
Okay.
Like
Now,
heaven is the dwelling place of God. And
now
if God cannot be existing in this universe if he created it in the first place.
okay. Now let me add in what I've read on some of this. When it comes to sacrifice, okay, and stuff of that nature, I came up with this, and it goes from the sacred being or from the sacrifice being the animal gave life to create this cosmic bridge of the axis Mundi. Death and decay led to new transformation. Primordial chaos gave rise to order. decay, birth, creation, and the animal's sacrifice generated the bridge of the Axis Mundi between the realms. Through love and strife, flux and transformation, the cyclical nature of putrescence and rebirth resonated. Through the decay of decomposition of water-based organic materials, which often resulted in the breakdown of compounds into simpler substances, the first body of structure from the primordial mud gave birth to the world. A cosmic being was sacrificed and dismembered to create the world and the universe itself. This included each realm, multiple worlds or layers of existence within the Axis Mundi. That's it.
Mm.
So,
Do you see this passage that I've got highlighted, Tan?
I'm driving right now. Can you read
So
it out?
what
And
it
what-
says, this is from that Gnostic text. It says, talking about the demiurge, it says,
Demiurge.
and
Okay.
and a
That,
spirit, and that spirit appeared, the ruler that set apart the watery substance, and what was dry was divided into another place, and from matter he made for himself an abode, and he called it heaven. Okay, it says from matter he made heaven. Do you understand?
well, so the Gnostic writing is wrong. I mean, I don't take much authority of the Gnostic writings,
Well,
right?
that's why your
So-
people killed all the Cathars, you know? It's like, couldn't hack it.
but think about it, right? So if heaven is, well, that must be a different kind of heaven that they're talking about. If heaven is the dwelling place of God, I mean, heaven is where God is. And
here's the
so
thing,
it
here's
can't
the
be
thing.
part of the universe that he created. I mean, he exists before the universe, right? So
well, see, this
Yeah,
this
but-
this
but
this,
here's-
this goes to prove what I was saying, that my theories are more valid than what you guys are doing. You're arguing over this meaningless argument. Now,
It's
what
not
it is,
I
to
just wanna-
see,
I just want to
we're
say
talking
something.
we're talking about realms. We're not talking
I just
about
wanna-
material and ethereal. We're talking about dimensions, realms,
Well,
things.
this is what we
This
are
is a
talking about.
complete.
but again, dimensions is also talking about
But here's the
physicality.
deception. Here's the deception between the Gnostic text and the modern Catholic tradition, right? The God of the Old Testament is the cruel and vindictive God, mind you, that, did all those horrendous things in the Old Testament.
Right,
The
right,
Gnostic
right. So that's
belief-
the Gnostic belief, right?
But then, no. This
Wh-
is fact from the Bible. Like,
Who's no. Whose belief are you stating that the God of the Old
Just
Testament
listen.
is the
Just
vindictive
listen.
God?
Just listen. So, the God of the Bible did all sorts of nasty shit, like asking people to stone each other. He asked the Hebrews to go butcher entire cities. He told them to take over land, all sorts of stuff like that, right? That is in the Bible. But
Hmm.
the Gnostics believe that that is actually a different being called Yaldabaoth that convinced the humans that he was God. So he claimed to be
Well,
God, but he wasn't actually the original father of the universe, the original consciousness, but called
yeah,
himself God, and he is the one that created the earth and ruled over matter. I don't actually know. I don't actually think he created the earth, but he
and
ruled over the
and
matter. And
and
so
that's why
he claimed the name.
the church considered the Gnostics heretics.
Yeah,
Well,
that's why
yes.
they were put
Right,
to
because
death.
the God of the Old Testament and the God of the New Testament is the same God.
But
Right?
but
Uh,
what if it's not? What if it's not? Because look at the Hebrew Bible. There's so many different words for God, right? Why is that?
Well,
Maybe
it,
there's
what do you mean? What if it's not? I mean,
like
we're
even in the
told by
Bible,
Jesus that his
even
father.
even in the Bible, it talks about God. It talks about Yahweh. It talks about what's the other one? Lord. Lord of Hosts. You know, it has all these different
Mm-hmm.
names for God.
Mm-hmm.
But when you actually go into the Gnostic text, it exactly explains what all these different terms mean. And they refer to different aspects of the one. Okay. But like it said, the ones that came subsequent to the original consciousness had varying degrees of power. They didn't have as much power as the ones above them. All right. But the one that was born into darkness, the evil one, thought like got so separated from the original consciousness of Sophia or wisdom that he believed that he was the only one in existence and the true God, and therefore ruled over the universe. So yeah,
No, that's actually the split both. There's a different camps that in that whole aspect too. Some of them believe that he did believe that, but then others also believe that freaking he deceived people into thinking that he was the only true God, and that
well,
there,
yeah, well,
you know what I
it's
mean?
hard
Like
for
there,
us to
there
know whether he believed it or not. He might have even believed
well,
it. Who
there
knows?
actually is like two or three different camps within the Gnostic beliefs that split on that whole opinion. Like one believes that he honestly did believe that he was the true God, and then another one camp believed that freaking he was purposely deceiving people
Yeah,
into
yeah,
thinking he was the true God. So you, even in
yeah.
that aspect, within the Gnostics, they kind of went two separate directions on that belief.
See, here it goes into the exactness of like the different terms. It's like Yao is feminine name for his lordship. Sabaoth is the name for deity. Adonias is the name of his kingship. Elios is the name of jealousy, and all these terms come about in the Hebrew Bible later on. You know, like Yah is Yahweh, Adonai is Adonias, Eli is Elohim or Eli or El. You know, and all it's interesting how these things sort of like reincarnate over time. Yeah,
Now, there's one thing I do want to bring up when it comes to the soul and the ascent of the soul, for in particular. You guys started getting into angels and stuff like that. Now, I did cover some of that with what I wrote, and it goes like this. It says this also suggests from what I just written or read to you guys. Okay, this also suggests an ascent of the soul where base matter was purified through trials, and the Axis Mundi served as a passage between realms to test transformation. The journey began in the primordial mud from which life emerged, then through chaos where order had to be carved from the formless void, and blackened through putrefaction before rebirth, emerging from these primordial depths stronger and wiser, passing um, through the cycle of death and rebirth, just as putrescence is necessary for new life. The soul seemed to climb towards the heavenly divine for spiritual element enlightenment, encountering primordial darkness to break down the ego, then returning with wisdom, the final enlightenment. And that's like a lot of the stuff that you guys are really talking about is ancient alchemy being interpreted into
that's right.
Christianity and into Judaism. You'll find a lot of alchemy when it comes to these belief systems. It's probably one of the oldest belief systems, to be honest. So when you're looking at this stuff, you have to think of it in alchemical um, references too, not just in theological. Uh,
Well, alchemical came from like Egypt and Greek um, origins. Like they believe that Hermes Trismegistus was the sort of god, or I don't know if they called him a god or not, but that he was this like wise man of the ages that bestowed this knowledge of alchemy to the people, and he was called Trismegistus because that means thrice great, three times great. It's because he reincarnated into different beings over time. Some say he was Thoth in one life and Hermes in another, and I don't know who the third one is. Might be Saint Germain or something, um, but yeah. So like they
Well,
are old beliefs, but a lot of this
it,
cosmogony or like about the gods and the angels and stuff, you can also see like similar types of that in ancient Mesopotamian and ancient
exactly.
Hindu and Buddhist beliefs as well. They have very similar sort of structures and stuff.
And look for keywords too. Like when you start hearing about things like um, the soul ascending up into heaven and stuff of that nature, and you start seeing hearing things about trials and tribulations. These are all ancient alchemical beliefs. Okay, this is before what we consider alchemical beliefs today. Okay, it got a
Sorry,
little bit.
can you guys give me a 1 or 2 minute summary of what alchemy is?
Well, what I'm getting at is like
Give me
rebirth.
a second.
Okay, rebirth.
Is it like a reincarnation?
Yeah, when you hear
The
about
same thing?
reincarnation, all of that, that is
It's
that's what that's all referring to. It's talking about reincarnation is about rebirth. It's about rejuvenation, a
Alchemy
transformation.
is more of a, they call it a science of the soul, where you learn how to do these practices that turn your soul from heavy lead into gold. So you transmute your spirit into higher and higher and more refined forms of matter, and to the point where they say you can even reach a point where you're immortal or become like a god. And
So
they call
it's a new form of a new form of what do you call it? Reincarnation in the Buddhism belief?
Well, it's
uh,
actually every belief system that does it. When you read this stuff, okay, you'll hear things like the soul seems to be climbing towards the heavenly divine for spiritual enlightenment. Okay, and on its journey, it's encountering darkness, and this is supposed to break down the ego, and that is supposed to be returning the individual to wisdom, and through wisdom, you're going to get the final enlightenment. You're going to be enlightened to it how the world works, and you're going to ascend to something better than what you were, and that's by breaking down the ego.
So here is like an alchemical quote from the Bible that I would say is in Matthew 6:22. Jesus said that the light of the body is the eye, and therefore, if thy eye be single, thy whole body will be full of light. Okay. So it's talking about if you bring like quiet your mind and bring your mind into the center point, which is your third eye, your astral body will be activated. You know, that's how we'd say it
Astral
nowadays.
body.
Yeah, your spiritual body, whatever.
Okay. So I don't know. I wonder if this also uh, is a Gnostic belief.
So
Because I don't know if it was the Gnostic or some other sect who believed superiority of the soul over the body. Like they believe that the soul is like
yeah,
trapped inside the body
that's right. They
and
believe
needs to be liberated. Is that the Gnostics?
Yeah, they believe the whole
Yeah.
physical universe was a prison for the spiritual body, and
Mm.
nothing in the physical was really that meaningful. They believed in like giving up your physical pleasures, your material wealth, and stuff like that to honor the spirit, so that you can set yourself free. I guess through like a type of transmutation to go back to that spiritual place. But here, the next passage says, uh, But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? No man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one or love the other, or else he will hold to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. Therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life, what ye shall eat or what ye shall drink, nor yet for your body, what ye shall put in. It is not the life more than meat, and the is not the life more than meat, and the body than raiment. Raiment? I don't know what that word is. So it's basically saying this is just like your fleshly form, and it's not as important, you know. Raiment, it means decorative clothing, so it's your decorative clothing for the spirit. Interesting, because that kind of ties into, like, you know, Buddhist and Hindu and stuff beliefs as well, kind of. So
Okay, maybe we need to step back on topic to the cosmic weave. We're diving too much into religion, you know.
all right. So I would say that there is a lot of this spiritual science has been kept intact in some of the more ancient beliefs, not necessarily the Abrahamic beliefs, but the Buddhists and the Hindus have maintained the alchemical practices that allow you to develop your spiritual body and your spiritual abilities. And I think now with modern day science, we're starting to actually be able to investigate that more and find out how true that stuff is.
Oh,
For
if he
example,
falls out and dies, it's your problems. Why?
so
Sorry,
so
guys.
for example, they like recently started doing electrocardiograms of monks' brains, and they found that they go into these high flow states, like theta states of consciousness, much more easily than someone who doesn't meditate. And that kind of explains why they had these uncanny abilities to, you know, um, remember things better, think more clearly, allegedly commune with spirit, and you know, when you go further back, the abilities get more even fantastical and magical, where like we're talking about levitation and out of body travel and telepathy and stuff like that. So um, yeah, it's interesting. And yeah, and now, you know, investigating metaphysics, we found that, you know, the observer plays a role in how reality manifests. And, you know, some believe, or like sort of interpret it, the information of the double slit experiment, as the observer like the universe is aware of us looking at it, and when we look at it or observe it, it forms into matter, forms into material beings. So that's a whole nother mystery that kind of like is on the edge of like spiritualism and religion and all this stuff, because it kind of shows that it's potential that the universe itself is conscious, which is really interesting, because like we're able to like investigate that scientifically now. Um, yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Roger, along those lines? Has he ducked out? I just want to give like a little bit of background on like my coming into this, how I sort of like started investigating this stuff. Is I got raised Christian, but I rebelled against it when I was pretty young, because I didn't like being forced into church and like just learning this stuff that not even the priests could explain to me. I've always been a very curious, questioning person, so like
Wait,
I don't
you
just
were
accept.
you were raised a Catholic?
No, not a Catholic. It was like some other denomination where you sing a lot. I can't remember what
What?
it's called.
That's Catholics. We
No,
sing a lot.
no, it was like a Dutch denomination. I can't
Yeah,
remember
but
the
they
name of it.
also have priests because you
They
said
had
priest.
they had
That's why.
priests and stuff like that, but it wasn't tied to the Vatican. I don't think it
Okay,
was.
so maybe Orthodox,
No, no, it wasn't Orthodox. It was
but they also have like a priest or
yeah, yeah. They have a
like,
priest. They'll do like a reading, then you sing for quite a bit, and then they do another
yeah,
reading. You go home. But what I
yeah,
didn't like
yeah.
is all the children had to stay behind in Sunday school, and they basically like
Mm-hmm,
just smashed us with all these Bible verses and stuff.
mm-hmm,
I'd be
mm-hmm.
the only one that would question it. I'd be like, "What does this mean? Like, how does that make sense?" And they didn't like that.
Wow, interesting. You're like young
So
Sheldon.
yeah, so
Yeah,
basically, eventually, I'm like, these guys don't know what they're talking about. I'm gonna look into
yeah.
science some more. So I got really into science, and
Okay.
then I became sort of like an atheist because I didn't really know
Mm-hmm,
what my
mm-hmm.
beliefs were. I just
Maybe agnostic.
agnostic, yeah. And but then at the same time, I liked. I went through a phase of questioning everything. I'm like, I'm gonna just investigate all the religions and see what rings true to me. And I just sort of like spent a few years like reading broadly into different religious beliefs and stuff, but
Mm-hmm,
nothing really like stuck to me. I prefer to
mm-hmm.
sort of like experience life and make up my own mind. And then when I was about like in my early 20s, I started growing some ayahuasca, and I had my first ayahuasca experience, and I started seeing things that I didn't believe in, which is not what I expected. I thought I would either see things that I believe in or completely random stuff. If your brain gets jumbled, technically you should see random stuff. But I didn't see random stuff. I started seeing spirits and like highly intricate shapes and colors that I had never seen before. I didn't know existed, and then I started. After investigating it some more, I started getting actual knowledge and like wisdom out of it. And I realized I could ask it questions and information would come into me. And I was like, whoa. And then I took a much more humble approach at it, at spirituality. I accepted the fact that I didn't know, and then I approached it from that questioning, open mind frame. And then after I had a whole bunch of experiences like that, I decided I'm going to relook at ancient beliefs with my new insight and see what I can discover in it. And what I discovered over time is like very similar concepts had been discovered by different cultures all around the world, and they just called it slightly different things. And
Sure.
that's why I find it interesting to sort of merge all these different beliefs into a sort of philosophy without like discounting any of them. I think they're all useful in their own special ways. I think like the whole universe, like I was saying to Roger earlier, I don't actually believe in chaos. I can accept the Greek interpretation of it, that it's like a primordial state of nothingness or in undifferentiated consciousness or something. I can accept that, but I don't believe in disorder. I think there's different degrees of order, and sometimes things get so complex that we can't comprehend it. And I actually just I'm starting to see that everything in the universe is perfect the way it is, and it fits into each other like a puzzle, and everything helps everything else in a certain way. So when you look at it from that perspective, it's difficult to feel like you're a victim or like something is going wrong. Because really, when you think about it, all the things that have ever quote unquote gone wrong in your life have taught you valuable lessons that's made you become who you are. And so I value all
Good.
sorts of experiences for their wisdom that they contain rather than
Good.
saying one thing is bad and another thing's good. If you step outside of that good and bad paradigm and just accept everything as part of the one consciousness trying to teach you something, you become a humble student at the feet of God or the universe, whatever you want to call it. Um, so yeah, that's my take on it.
Now, when you mentioned the whole chaos thing, I do want to mention something about that. Now, I think a lot of people misunderstand that too because first you have to comprehend this. This is a very simple concept. It's even disorder is order. Okay, that's not chaos. Um, if you have disorder in your life, you still have a some sense of order going on. You know what I mean? Um, whenever they are referring to chaos, the purest form of chaos is the empty void of nothing.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, that chaos. There's an actual mathematical theory called chaos theory.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
You want to hear it?
yeah. Um,
Yeah, but mathematics is only as good as the mathematician. You know what I mean?
Well, hold on now. We wanted, or Tan wanted to hear the science side of this. Okay, so
right.
if we get into that, let Tan start up with the chaos theory, and then we can go from there.
No, well, I cannot elaborate too much on it at this point. I need some grounding materials, and I'm still not at home yet. I'm still driving.
Okay.
If you talk among
I'll give you
yourself
a
for
quick I'll give you a quick definition of chaos theory.
yeah,
Chaos
there you go. No, Mr. Robot, you have all the reference stuff in there. Give us the quote.
Yeah, so chaos theory is an interdisciplinary area of scientific study and branch of mathematics that focuses on the underlying patterns and deterministic laws of dynamical systems that are highly sensitive to initial conditions. It explores how small changes in starting conditions can lead to vastly different outcomes, a phenomenon known as the butterfly effect. This theory examines systems that may appear to be without order or randomness, but actually follow deterministic laws. It aims to understand the complex behavior of systems that can shift from one stable to unstable, or form or sorry, behavior of systems that can shift from stable to unstable or form order to disorder. So it's kind of saying what we're saying. It's saying even though things seem to go into randomness, they actually follow deterministic laws. So
Right.
by
Yeah.
definition, that's not chaos. That's order that we don't understand, you know?
Right.
So
Now, this
Does that definition fit into what you guys used to believe is chaos?
uh, that's
it's
not
not the
chaos.
traditional.
That's a disorder.
Yeah,
That's a disordered form of order. Okay. Now
I would
chaos.
say entropy or extropy or something like that.
Right.
Um,
Now
it's
this
yeah,
is something that I'm going to be going into in my next actual episode of the Cosmic Weave because we're going from one level to another level, and when you look at this, you have to talk about free will versus freaking determination. Okay. Um,
Predestination.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Predetermination.
but
Uh,
well, yeah, I mean, but just let me just catch you. Like you said that chaos is just an order, disorder form of order.
no, no, no.
It's
I
the
didn't
total
say that.
opposite of order.
No, chaos.
It's
Chaos
basically
is
disorder,
no.
basically.
Chaos is an empty void of nothingness.
that's the original meaning of it.
Right, and that's
It's
what I
used
hold to.
differently now, but that's the
Well,
original
what
meaning.
you just read there says the same thing. It says that it's
Yeah,
still a
Yeah,
form of order.
yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And
Uh,
that's what I was saying. I was saying that people have a misconception of what chaos is. Okay, chaos
because
isn't.
modern science, like chaos theory, misuses the term. They're not using it in the old way. They're trying to like put it into this new context, which isn't really what it means.
Well,
Like
deterministic.
meaning the disorder form of order.
You know.
even here, they say apparent randomness of chaotic complex systems. It's
Yeah.
only apparent randomness when there's actually underlying patterns, interconnection, and constant feedback loops, repetition, self similarity, fractals, and self organization. So
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that
it's
goes
not
into
really
my
what I mean.
scientific side of
Yeah.
this goes into my whole scientific part of the cosmic weave, and it's actually it breaks down quite a bit of that. Like you pull that back up real quick. The loops. You still got that? You
So
don't.
this is all the basis for all these fractals algorithm that generates seemingly random patterns that looks beautifully generated
Now in order
overall, right?
right now in order for you to understand this stuff, you have to freaking go in and you have to go start from the basics, and it's not really the basics, but it's the human brain. Okay, you need to look at the freaking thalamus, for example. That's the perfect place to start. Now, it's a large mass of matter located within the dorsal part of the brain too. Okay, and it's known as they have different parts of it, and it's called the diacephalon, and what happens is it integrates and it filters and coordinates sensory and motor inputs into the brain function. Okay. Now, when you take a look at this stuff and you start doing the research on it, you find out that it's more than just a relay center. Okay. Now, what it does is it ensures that the higher order brain functions, like your perception and your cognition and your and movement, all of that stuff, it ensures that all of that operates seamlessly and efficiently. So when you start looking at that, you start finding out that there's clusters of nerve cells that are with specialized functions that form nuclei within the brain. Okay, and these nuclei they receive input from like various sensories and motor systems within your brain, and they send output to different areas of the cerebral cortex. Okay. Now, this is what it all breaks down to. You can take this same process and you can start looking into it even further, and you'll start noticing that this doesn't just relate to the human brain and the human body, but it extends outward to freaking nature and the way things work. When you look at birds flying south for the winter in an ordered fashion, okay, you're looking at equilibrium. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but what does that have to do with chaos?
Yeah.
I'd like to clarify on the equilibrium. I don't understand where that comes into it.
Well, with equilibrium is about balance. Okay,
Yeah.
it's about balance, and a lot of people believe that equilibrium has to do with just your body, but it's not. You have equilibrium when it comes to the way nature works. There's certain natural elements of the brain that goes along with the way the world around you works. And
True.
for example, like I was talking about with birds when they fly south, they instinctually know that they need to fly south together, and not only that, but they form patterns in their flight when you look at them flying. Okay. Now that's more than just a coincidence. That's called a phenomenon. That means that they can't
Yeah.
explain it.
It's a pattern. Yeah. I
Okay.
would say, even as far as every complex system in the universe wants to find some kind of stable state that is balanced. It can never actually reach that state, but it always tries to get to it. So, for example, if you put a drop of paint into water, it'll dissolve and slowly spread to find a equal state throughout the water, right? And it's the same in your brain, where if you overdo it with a certain neurochemical, let's say you drink a lot of coffee, you'll go into a hyperstimulated state. it's too extreme. So your brain will compensate by getting drained, going into a lower state, and then it'll bounce back and forth until it finds a stable state again. You know,
Mhm.
um, yeah.
And it even goes deeper too, because like when it comes to like if you touch a hot surface, okay, a signal is relayed through your thalamus. It prompts you to quickly move your hand off of that flame because through sensation, there's a signal that's relayed from freaking your brain or through your brain that prompts you to freaking pull your hand away from it. Now, if you didn't have that signal, you wouldn't freaking do it. Your hand would, you'd just leave your hand there and you'd burn yourself. You see what I mean? So,
Mm-hmm.
so you have this information that's being transferred from one part of your body to another, which relies on touch, senses, feelings, things of that nature. And what that is it's coordinated responses based on your sensory feedback.
It's interesting that reflex of like pulling your hand away doesn't actually need to go to the brain to be processed. It gets processed in the spinal column. That's why it happens so quickly. You can actually, yeah. So your spinal column acts as its own little brain within itself as well.
Mhm.
Um,
It's amazing. It really is. And people don't look at this stuff on a spiritual level. They don't think to themselves that this is spiritual at all. This is just physical. This has nothing to do with anything spiritual whatsoever. When
well, the interesting part of it is, right, how the whole brain has two parts. It's like a duality, right? It's got the left and the right brain,
Mhm.
except for the very center in the bottom of the hypothalamus, there is the pineal gland, which actually isn't originally a part of the brain. It is a part of the embryonically, it's part of the roof of your mouth, and it kind of shoots up into your brain and becomes like a little hormonal gland. And where Jesus talks about when your eye is single, your body is full of light. That is traditionally in like Buddhist mythology. It's considered the third eye, right? When he says your eye is single, he's talking about the third eye, the pineal gland, which is also the part of your brain that produces DMT, which is your dream chemical, and they also call it your spirit molecule. And that is the part of your brain that is the center point, the axis mundi, that actually connects you to your higher spiritual self. So, which, some people call it the dream time, or, the spirit world, heaven, whatever you want.
well,
So here
that
we
goes
have a
in
connection between the physical and the spiritual. And
that goes into my part two on the science part, where we start talking about the dream and the dream state. And you also have to look at uh, delta waves, I believe is what they're called. Or delta, you have delta, omega, and it's different. Yeah, delta waves is one important thing that you have to look at, and that's actually part of your brain that
do you want me to define the different waves?
huh?
Do you want me to define the different waves?
Yeah, I believe so. That'd be,
So
but
delta waves is between zero point 0.5 and 4 hertz. These are the slowest brain waves and are predominant during sleep, dreamless sleep. They are also linked to empathy and healing processes. Delta waves are crucial for restorative sleep and are often observed in infants and during deep meditation in adults. Where theta waves are 4 to 8 hertz. Theta waves are associated with deep relaxation, daydreaming, and light sleep. They are predominant in children and adolescents who are linked to creativity, intuition, and memory storage. Um, it goes through alpha as like your daily awake alert mode. Um, then you get your gamma waves, which is like the high frequency waves, 30 to 100 hertz. Gamma waves are the fastest brain waves that are linked to higher cognitive function, including memory consolidation, information processing, and heightened awareness. They are often observed during moments of insight and peak performance, which
Right.
is what I was saying before the monks get when they meditate very deeply. They get these bursts of gamma waves.
No,
Yeah.
the gamma waves are very important. Okay. Now, the gamma waves, you got to think of them like in a car engine. Okay. When you have pistons that fire off, okay, it fires off it, and what it does is it creates combustion within the the rods. Now, this is what's kind of going on metaphorically, I guess you could say, inside of your brain with those gamma waves. You're getting bursts of energy that are constantly going off, and without that, you're not going to be able to freaking think, make fast decisions. You know what I mean? Things of that
Mm,
nature. So
mm.
that's what's important. And now with the okay, hold up, I got to hit refresh.
So they've also found that like certain psychedelics like DMT also produce gamma waves, and it can also be observed in many mood and cognitive disorders like Alzheimer's, epilepsy, and schizophrenia, where the brain kind of over amplifies.
Mm-hmm.
But
No,
I
I tried
find
to
it
keep
interesting. Sorry.
I tried to keep away from the disorders and everything because I was wanting to focus more on like what the actual functions of each wave was. But I did go through them and everything and seen all of them. The thing that stuck out with me the most is the delta waves, and then the freaking the theta
Gamma wave.
waves. No, the thetas actually. Um, the ones that are just above them. I believe that's the theta, right?
Theta waves are the deep relaxation
Yes.
daydreaming. So delta is the
Right.
lowest, and then theta is just above that, 4 to 8 hertz,
Exactly. Now,
to do with creativity, intuition, and memory storage.
with the delta waves, when the function that's going on during this phase of sleep, okay, which is you're getting a low wave. It's your um, that's deep sleep. Okay, so when you fall into deep sleep, you have these certain cycles that you go through when you're sleeping. You have deep sleep is before you get to the REM stages. Now, that does is that actually helps freaking repair like tissues that are damaged inside of the body and the brain and everything, and it also widens gaps within the brain so that this fluid would flow through it and wash chemicals out of your brain, physical toxins that are inside of your brain. It literally cleans it out. So when they're saying restoring you, that's what they're talking about. It's literally during this phase of sleep, it is restoring your mind. And it's really, really important to have deep sleep because if you don't, then you're going to have issues with mental illnesses and things of that nature. Um,
I
and
find it interesting that the theta waves are associated with stuff like schizophrenia, but it's also associated with spiritual states. So,
Mhm.
like, they found that people with schizophrenia actually pee out DMT. They pee out the breakdown products of DMT. And so it's interesting to me that, like, in shamanistic societies, people will often have what's called a shamanistic crisis where they just scatter around for a month and they don't know what's what and where they are and whatnot. But really, like in today's society, we would call them schizophrenic. But in those societies, they consider them to be having a spiritual experience, you know? So I found that interesting, that connection there. I also find it interesting that what was it? Alpha waves? Delta waves. They're associated and linked to empathy and healing processes.
Right.
So I'd like
Exactly.
to understand how that works, the empathy part.
Well, this all goes back to what we were just talking about when it comes to freaking when it comes to spiritual principles and stuff like that. This is physically connected. Okay, this is science telling you that this is real. Okay, everything that we were just discussing is linked to this on a spiritual level. Okay, and people have this desire to just deny it like it's not real and it's not there, when science itself is telling you that this is what the brain does during sleep, and it does it for a reason. Okay, and it's right there in front of your face. So I don't see an argument between religion and science when you look at this kind of information and you find it out. You know what I mean? It actually goes hand in hand with one another. If you are willing to be open minded enough to look at it and see it for what it really is. Okay, I don't, and you guys know I don't like follow one specific religious group. I do think um, spirituality is important, and I believe that a lot of these religions do have good spiritual principles, and I believe in them. But I also know that you kind of have to be open minded to things, because it's not just a spiritual realm. Okay, you're living in a physical, emotional, and spiritual realm, and you have to accept all of it. Okay, it's the full package. It's not one or the other. You can't pick and choose.
Well, yeah. I think universal wisdom can come from anywhere. It doesn't have to come from one specific ancient text, for example. It can be just someone you meet in the street, or like the way that a leaf falls to the ground, or the way the sun rises over the ocean. There's so many ways the universe can communicate with you, and if you close yourself off to any part of it, you're really doing yourself a disservice, because there's a lesson you're not getting.
Right. Now, what I was referring to was the sensory cortex processes. Um, uh, this and it processes touch and spatial awareness. Now, if that's damaged, it could cause paralysis or loss of sensation in certain body parts. The brainstem controls vital functions such as breathing, heart rate, and consciousness. Now, the middle cerebral artery supplies much of the brain's oxygenated blood. Now, these regions also influence memory, emotional processing, and consciousness, with the limbic system playing a role in emotions and behavior. That right there is the part that really kind of woke me up, and it started making me think, get into areas where I learned that where neurons can rewire themselves. Okay, and they can allow undamaged areas of the brain to take over lost functions from damaged areas. So now you're going into a whole different level of understanding. Okay, now you're starting to realize that without your consent, your brain is actually going in and neurons are rewiring themselves without your consent. Okay, it has a conscience of its own, away from.
What are you talking about? Your
That's the
brain
way
is part of you.
your brain. Your brain.
Your brain needs your consent.
No, your brain can do things for itself without you
Oh
consciously
yeah.
saying. You know what I
Well,
mean?
I think it's important to make the distinction between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, because Roger's right. Like, a big part of your body actually just functions autonomously. You don't have to think about breathing. You don't have to think about your heart pumping. All these
Yep.
processes go on their own. And
Yep.
yeah, you can influence some of them, but when you're not influencing them, they go back to a state of operating on their own.
No, not
So,
no. Listen, I'm going even further with that. When you have damage
yeah,
that is done, your
yeah.
brain will literally rewire
Like,
itself.
for example, people have had a surgery done where they get half of their brain cut out, right? Like, let's say the left half of their cortical hemisphere is removed, and the other side of the brain actually compensates and takes over the functions of the removed part of the brain. And like a muscle, like if your one muscle becomes unfunctional, the muscles around it will pick up the slack and start to grow bigger and compensate for that function. It's the same with the brain.
Right. What happens is your brain starts freaking sprouting new dendrites and axons to reroute information. Um, Now, like if the left half of the hemisphere is damaged, the right hemisphere can compensate by taking over language or motor functions, for example. You know what I mean? And then you can also use repetition in order to train the brain to rewire the motor cortex and stuff. So not only does it do it naturally, but you can also train your brain by, like, say you lose function of your arm, but you can still train yourself by, like tightening your fist or something as much as you possibly can. Over time, your brain will reroute everything that's needed so that you could eventually get some functionality out of that arm. You know.
Yeah, 100%. My friend developed this technique called dynamic movement therapy, um, short for DMT, where you basically spin different parts of your body. Like you use every joint in your body and you move it in circular directions, one direction, other direction, opposite directions. And you basically, the idea is you move your body in ways you've never moved it before. And that creates new interconnected neurons in your brain and like reintegrates your brain and body in a way that makes it more aware of itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting practice to get into.
Right, and also you take a look at synaptic pruning. Okay, that's where the brain strengthens useful neuron pathways and weakens unused ones. Repeated use of a pathway reinforces it. So even communication skills can be regained by retaining undamaged language areas of the brain. So, like people who have strokes and it's hard for them to talk, they can actually go in and they can uh, be able to regain parts of their language because of synaptic pruning and allowing your brain to use like useful neuron pathways instead of the
Here's a funny example. Like, have you ever tried to move each one of your toes one at a time without moving any others? You'll find you can do it with your big toe and the one next to it maybe, but then it gets harder as you get to the littler toes because you've never used them before. But over time, as you keep practicing it, you can actually start to move those other little toes individually as well. So that's, yeah, an example of that.
So just so people who, if they're listening or if they listen in the future, the principle I'm talking about is one that everybody uses. Is called neurons that fire together, wire together. If you're interested in finding out about stuff like that, that's the best way to find out about it. And I've actually done. That was my last stream when I went over all that stuff. So.
And if you don't use it, you lose it, folks. So use it.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to be appropriate here. When I hear terms like that, I go just in another direction altogether. You know what I mean? So
Well, that's
I'm
what you were saying. Synaptic pruning. If you don't use a part of your brain, it becomes less strong. You use it less. Now, that can be useful in some circumstances. For example, if your dopamine pathway is being used too much, you start to get cravings because your dopamine pathway grows out of balance. The only way to shrink it back down is to stop using it and to cut out things that release dopamine. That will shrink it back down. You stop getting cravings. Okay.
All right. So, Dan, since you wanted to hear the scientific stuff, is this good? Are you getting enough of it, or do we need to continue? Oh, he left. He got sick of us, didn't he?
He's probably on his way home.
Yeah, he stepped out.
So what do you think about like hormones and their relation to our emotions and interconnection with each other and stuff like that, like oxytocin and um, what's the other big one? Um,
Well, see, with me, when it comes to the chemicals and everything, those are afterthoughts of the stuff that I've been looking at. Like I've been really looking into like first I got into the sleep, and I was talking about that. All right, with the deep sleep, which is actually called low. I think it's called low wave sleep. Um, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Slow wave sleep is what it is. Um,
mhm.
then after I started checking that out, I started getting into theta waves. Now, this this kind of relates to even math and like terminology, what theta actually stands for. Okay, um, it, the term theta by itself is pretty much an interesting topic on its own. Okay.
Theta, the eighth letter of the Greek alphabet, corresponding to English th, early 15th century. The Greek character and name derived from Hebrew teth, originally an aspirated T. It was written on ancient ballots to indicate a vote for a sentence of death.
No, that's
Thanatos, hence occasional elusive use for death. It also could mean a sign of the cross based in traditional transliteration of Greek theta by Latin tau. This is the roots of the word, but not necessarily how it's
no.
used anymore.
Theta is actually a part of the alphabet. It's actually Greek, um,
Yeah.
and now the term theta is referred to in both theological beliefs as well as scientific beliefs. Um, it's it's
Other
yeah,
words like thermal, theory, theater, all came from the theta symbol originally.
yeah.
Uh,
Now the whole thing of it is like theta waves is also something that's important to to understand when it comes to what theta waves does inside of the human body. Okay, and when you take a deeper look at theta waves and you look at it on a well outside of your body point of view, okay, you start seeing that there's similarities between theta waves and theta like waves that are outside of the body that actually coincide with one another. You know what I mean?
well,
That
isn't the Schumann resonance within that spectrum? It's like
yes,
7.3 or something, and that's within the theta frequencies.
hmm yes. Now, that was something that really stuck out to me. In geometry, theta is used to represent an unknown angle or a special function used in various areas of mathematics, particularly in complex analysis and number theory. Okay. Also, in polar coordinates, theta often represents the angle in relationship to the origin, and the letter itself is sometimes used to represent temperature or potential in certain physical formulas. Now, theta waves are a type of brainwave that occur during periods of sleep, relaxation, light sleep, or meditation, and they're often associated with states of creativity, intuition, and memory consolidation. So, um, the whole thing with theta waves is not only is it a part of your intuition and creative part of your mind, but it's also about memory consolidation. All right. And
Mm-hmm.
now what happens is on a day-to-day basis, your brain is going through freaking information that it's receiving, it's processing from all the world around you. Okay, and there's a lot of useless information, and then there's a lot of information that you need. And um, this is the process where the brain starts doing memory consolidation. It's determining what you actually need and what you don't need, and it's throwing away those freaking thoughts or that data that you don't need because it's just too much for your brain to handle. And it's consolidating all of this memory that you have to retain short term. Now, at the end of the night, when you go to bed, your brain uh, takes all of that temporary data and it goes through that and it says, okay, this is what we need for long term. So it's storing that in your long term memory. Okay, does that make sense?
And this happens in the hippocampus,
Yeah.
which is in the thalamus.
Okay, so this is a kind of a gatekeeper of the brain, basically. And I know a lot of people you hang out with use the word gatekeeper in a really, really negative way. Okay, so there's a little bit of negativity here, but there's also some positive sides to it. Okay, um, and this is what I always want to bring up when I talk about UFOs and stuff like this too. Okay, because this is very important. This is the way your brain um, recognizes things, and it determines if it's necessary or if it's unnecessary, if it's something you can comprehend or you can't comprehend. This is the part of the brain that freaking determines that. So in a parapsychological point of view, when you look up at the sky and you're seeing a cylinder object that according to all physics that we comprehend, can't possibly happen, is it really what you're looking at, or is it what your brain is able to comprehend and allowing you to see? You see what I mean?
Yeah. And it's still a pretty early area or young area of science. It hasn't been fully understood yet. So there's a lot of different theories about it still. Um, I'll just read out a little quote here. A study on humans has showed that theta oscillations determine memory function, encoding, and recall when interacting with high frequency gamma activity in the hippocampus. These findings support the idea that theta oscillations support memory formation and retrieval in interaction with other oscillatory rhythms. These different theories have since been combined and have been shown that the firing pattern can support both navigation and memory.
Mhm. And also take into consideration that the theta rhythms, okay, the interplay between alpha and theta rhythms, okay, is mostly evident during meditation and trance-like states. Now, this is
And
another.
sleep. And sleep. So, like in animals, like rats and stuff, they get a little bit of these theta waves when they're just cruising around eating and stuff like that because they're much more calm in general. But humans, we like do a lot of higher processing and stuff, so we don't actually get a lot of that theta rhythms in our day to day lives, and that's why we do need times of like calm and rest to be able to absorb and integrate our information.
Mhm. Now, when you're in meditative or trance-like states, you're both in a state of relaxation and introspective awareness, and they're heightened. Okay, now alpha rhythms, they serve kind of like a scaffold for mental imagery and memory retrieval, emotional regulation, and stuff like that. So that's kind of what you're going through when it comes to the alpha waves. And it's like I said too. Whenever it comes to memory consolidation, that's another big deal right there. That where you have alpha working with theta, so that freaking it can kind of like discern the freaking thought processes that are going on in your mind, okay, and determining what's needed and what's not. And at night when you're going to bed, it's actually sorting through all of that stuff, and it's saying we don't need this, we need this. We don't need this, we need this. You know what I'm saying? So it's literally doing this stuff while you're asleep. And usually if you don't get deep sleep, what you're going to experience is grogginess. That's the first sign. So when you wake up and you're feeling groggy, that's probably because you haven't gotten the amount of deep sleep that you need at night. So just a kind of a little hint there. If you're feeling groggy every morning when you wake up, maybe that's what's going on in your mind.
I'm feeling a little groggy right now when you're talking about it.
That's because I'm boring the shit out of you, dude.
No, you know how when people talk about yawning, you end up yawning?
Yeah. Now, outside of the brain, alpha-like rhythm patterns can be seen in systems that rely on cycles or restraint and release, such as biological feedback loops. This is the loops part that you guys were talking about, and it took all this time for me to finally get there. Okay, but when you look at biological feedback loops, the circadian biology and certain technological systems. There's the predator-prey dynamics that you have to take a look at. They often oscillate around like the balance state where one species actually or actively modulates the population and behavior of another. So the stronger predator kills off the prey and it lowers the population of that species, which is a part of this whole process that we're talking about. It's, you know what I mean? This is what they're talking about. And this is an alpha like rhythmic pattern, okay, that could be related directly to the alpha rhythms that are going on inside of your brain. Okay, so not only is it happening in your brain, but it's happening in the natural world around you.
Here it says mindfulness meditation has shown to increase alpha wave power in both healthy subjects and patients. Practitioners of transcendental meditation have demonstrated 1 Hertz reduction in alpha wave frequency relative to controls. And it also says that if you have like developing alpha wave rhythms results in faster perceptual visual learning, and it's maintained the day following training. So
Now that's all the hip, cool stuff that you can hear about when it comes to talking about alpha waves. Okay, but I want everybody to understand that the really important stuff is really in the delta and the theta waves. Okay, this is the stuff that is really important to learn about. And because if you do that, then what's going to end up happening is you're going to start having a lot better understanding of what's going on when it comes to spiritual principles and things like that, because it's just right up in your face whenever you look at this stuff. Okay, I mean, there is a physical aspect to the spiritual principles that people are talking about. They're one and the same. It's just you're not looking in the right area to find them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
you get personal EEG devices nowadays that can measure your brain waves in real time, and you can actually like see what happens when you do different things and when you meditate and so on. And you can actually learn how to control your brainwaves by viewing it in real time. I'd like to try that one day.
So Tan's back. What do you think so far about our scientific analogy, Tan Hai Tran? I see you there. He's just listening right now. He's probably thinking, "Oh, look at these two. They've done it gone nuts."
Yeah, sorry guys. I am still driving, but
He's
the
probably
stuff that
waiting.
you're talking about. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stuff that you're talking about. I don't have anything to say there, so I was just listening in. But I was wondering how that fits into the cosmic weave.
Well, we're all connected. You see what I mean? This information that's being used within the brain and these waves that are being used, they're all connected to the outside world. It's not
So
just
you're saying the stuff that's going on inside our brain or inside our body is just like a microcosm of the universe.
exactly, and it's like these receptors that are in our brain, okay, that are transmitting these frequencies and everything. They're not just transmitting them inside of us, but they're also transmitting them outward.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It, you've got something on in the background there, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are a lot of people in my car, so I'm going to mute myself.
Okay.
So what I wonder is whether there is such a thing as like a collective consciousness on the planet where our, like, you know how all these different ancient cultures have described like auras, halos and things like this, where there is like an energy body resonating around the physical body, and whether that connects up to the ionosphere of the Schumann resonance and interact with each other on like a higher level, you know. And I think one day we will find that, when we mess with the ionosphere, we're actually going to mess with people's emotions at the same time.
I would even go as far as to say is it's not just ancient times or older times. Dr. Jung discussed the God conscience too. You know what I mean? And he was very serious about his theories. He also believed in dream interpretations and stuff of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so he even had representations of what each thing in your side of your dream would represent. To like an old lady would represent this, or an old man would represent this, and he had all of that mapped out. So I mean, I would even say that it's accepted by a lot of people in the psychological or psychiatric and psychological, I guess, departments, whatever.
Yeah. Psychology realms.
Yeah, the realms of psychology. So, but that's where I'm at right now, and I've got.
And also, what about like the Russian Kerwellian photography and stuff like that, where they found that you can actually photograph the electromagnetic field around the body, and they also found you can entrain the brain with different frequencies around the body, whether it's light or sound or electromagnetism. You can actually like change the state of being of a person just based on the frequencies they're saturated in. So that's interesting.
Now with me, I do this stuff out of straight data, so I'm not like I'm gonna let everybody know I'm not like this hippie freaking new Western society Buddhist who thinks that it's cool to take drugs to have a psychedelic experience and have a spiritual experience. I leave that.
Roger, that's ancient. That's older than religion. Come on.
I leave that
New
to
age.
Mr. Robot. I leave that to Mr. Robot. but like
I'm just saying it's been done since time immemorial.
No,
Monkeys took mushrooms way before humans were here.
any way you look at this, though, okay, me and Miss Robot have one thing in common, and that one thing in common is we drive Tan Hai Tran freaking nuts.
Yep. Yes, you do.
And
I'm losing my hairs because of you two.
oh yeah, I know. It's,
I'm going bald.
It's all right. Jesus will forgive us, Dan.
Yeah, of course. If you're repentant enough.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
you know, Mark Edward is missing out on a lot of the good stuff you guys have been discussing.
well,
You know,
I don't think he
he
could.
would have a lot to say about these the stuff that you come up with.
So I think the logical next place we should go is, where do you see this going in the future? Like, do you think there's going to be a divergence again between like religion and science? Do you think it's going to come
Oh
together?
yeah, yeah. Oh, I
Do you
wanted
think
to. I did want to bring say something when you guys. I don't know if it's Mr. Robot, during your introduction, you were saying that science and the religions are two different opposing things, kind of. And my
a
view
lot
is
of
that
people think that way? Not me
I don't
necessarily.
believe that at all. I think that they are two. I think I might have mentioned this before in Roger's stream. Is science and religions are like two lungs of two lungs of God's creation, and they work complementary with each other, and there's no reason why they should be contradicting each other. So I mean, if we think that religion contradicts science, then our understanding of either religion or science is flawed somewhere. And so,
I agree with
yeah,
you
right,
100%.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, what scientific proof would you have to see to give up your religion, Tan? What would you have to see to
It's
accept
it
that
is
science
it,
is actually the best?
sign proving that God doesn't exist,
All right. So if we
right?
develop a
But
test that proves that,
that and it's an impossibility, right? So I mean,
well,
science
isn't
is
that convenient? Isn't
uh,
that convenient?
exactly because science is science is about the observation of the physical universe, and you know, God is some being that is outside of the universe. So how can something inside the universe describe what can or cannot exist outside of itself,
Right.
right? So it's not possible. You can't do
No,
it.
but wait a minute. Wait a minute. You're contradicting yourself now.
Right.
Before you said that everything in the universe is God or part of God. So how can God be outside the universe if the
Right.
universe is
I
within
mean,
God?
if God created the universe, then everything inside the universe is like part of Him. But it doesn't mean that you know He created us out of something that belongs to Him. And so in that sense, we're a part. He's part of everywhere in the universe. But
Well,
doesn't
then
mean
logic would dictate that we should be able to contact God from here and investigate it,
That's
right?
called prayer, dude.
yep. But I mean,
All I can say
right?
is,
So
Duh,
God
I,
dang, we
you,
actually
duh.
agree on something.
I mean,
And
no, I so I'm not I'm saying like so science itself will not give you the answer to God's existing, but there are other ways of knowing other than science, right? We have like science is not the only way for us to know things, right? If you study philosophies, there are different ways of knowing. Like
Right.
the right there's
see,
arts, there's philosophy. You can know by reasoning, right?
to me, science is just a tool that you can use in many other domains. Like you can use like science in religion, for example, like the scientific process, of like having a hypothesis, testing the hypothesis, that kind of thing. You can do it in philosophy, you can do it in any realm of existence. It's just a process of understanding or like getting closer to truth. Now, I don't think you can actually get to the ultimate truth through science necessarily, but you can investigate different aspects of it, and maybe get closer to it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
question for both of you when it comes to science. What what is the most important thing to science? What's the first and most important thing needed when it comes to science?
Observation?
What about you, Tan? What do you think?
Yeah. Hypothesis and experimentation, I guess.
The most important thing when it comes to science is a question. You have to have a question to do any kind of experimentation. That's the first thing you do. You ask yourself a valid question, and then you try through experimentation to find out what the results would be to answer that question. So without
I actually disagree with that. I'm going to push back a little bit
that
because,
scientific
yeah,
method,
that
bud.
comes later. I think a hypothesis comes later, and from the hypothesis, you can create a question. But
No,
you can do pure science of just investigating, regardless of what you're going to find. You don't have to have a question. You can just go, I'm going to conduct this experiment and record data. I'm not even going to interpret the data. I'm just doing pure science. A lot of people do that.
now,
And I
now do
think
you,
actually that's the most
now do you
worthy of all the sciences because that's what everything else gets based on eventually.
Now, do you understand
So
why they call you pseudoscience? They say, "Oh, Mr.
Pseudos.
Robot, his
no
pseudoscience.
one calls me that, folks. That's a
He,
lie and
he,
a smear and illegal.
he doesn't even ask questions. He just does the research. Doesn't even ask questions. So you know what I
Mr.
mean?
No,
Robot
but he
keeps
has a
person ask
question in
questions
his
later.
mind, But it could be. I don't know if pseudoscience is a good description,
No,
uh,
it's not. I was
Mr.
just
Robot.
joking
But
around. I was just joking.
but I mean, some people do science based on some presumption of the conclusion, and they try to support their conclusion, right? So that's not the proper way of doing science. But I think that a lot of people in the scientific community do that, right?
You have to
So
ask questions. That's where it comes from. Ask yourself questions like, "How does this work?" That's a question. You know what I mean?
uh, maybe it's a good time. Is this a good time to pause and then maybe save some of those discussions for next episode? Because I do need to drop
Yeah,
off
I
any
mean,
minute now.
we got like 9 minutes until uh, 3 hours. So I even had to cut it loose yesterday because we were doing the thing about the internet
Someone
being a
needs to hold
scam.
their mic. It's crackling a lot. I don't know
That's
what it is.
probably mine.
Is it mine or Rogers? I'm gonna mute myself. See.
But
Rough, really rough.
yeah, is it mine?
It's better now. Better now.
Oh, okay.
Don't move it.
But before we go, because we got like 8 minutes, you guys tell everybody who you are and how they can get in touch with you, and we'll go ahead and call this off, and we'll come back later with another discussion about this. Okay?
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, let's next time let's plan a topic ahead of time so we can
This was
prepare some notes. It'll be a more meaningful discussions if we do.
this was actually
so you guys can't actually find me. I will find you. So
Yeah, I was about
if
to say the
if you
same
want to
thing.
try, if you want to try, you can download the application Element from element.io, and on there you can go hashtag a hack dash planet, and you'll find our community space. In there, you will find a chat room called hashtag conspiracy theory, and it's called the Tinfoil Hat Club. That's where you'll find us.
all right.
Yeah, but Mr. Robot is a very elusive character. That's why he's called Mr. Robot.
That's right. Know what about you, Tan?
I was about to say you cannot find me as well, but Mr. Robot stole the thunder. I'm on Minds, minds.com/th2tran, and I join Roger's stream once in a while, so
Yeah.
you don't need to find me. I'll find you.
Yeah, he's always around. He's always helping me out, and uh, him and Mr. Robot are also on my shows all the time. So if you guys want to contact him or send him a message, you can contact him through the comment sections of my streams, or come on Discord and go to the wonderful world of weirdness. There, you can contact us. You can also contact us on X through, I think it's no, it's Roger Hansen, which is at ROGLOL1973, um, and minds.com with Roger underscore Hansen. So, um, with that being said, man, I mean, I don't know what you guys are talking about. We actually had a pretty good topic. I had to kind of break you two apart because you're a wild man. And you start see, and this is the reason why we needed to do this stream, because like it was good content in the chat section, and I thought it was something that you guys really would have made a good topic out of, and you did a really good job.
Yeah.
At it. So
Yeah, I mean, it's not often to get Mr. Robot on the stream, so I'm
you,
glad you
Are we
were.
still live? Are we
you,
still live?
dude.
Yeah, yes, we are.
Yes.
I
mean,
just want to say one last thing to the listeners. Just remember, guys, there is no separation. We are all one consciousness in the entire universe, and the universe itself is conscious, and it's there to teach you and to learn from. So just ask and seek, and you will find. Enjoy.
And Mr. Robot is a well-known conspiracy theorist.
yes. And Tan, I'm getting you on the wonderful world of weirdness is freaking awesome, because we don't get too many chances to get you on this channel. Okay, now this, I know you're on all the other ones, but it's very rarely we get you on here, so this is a big deal for me. So, oh, we did have you on Ancient Mysteries, but you know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's really hard to get you on this one because I know you're not really into the paranormal and stuff like that. So at least we found a topic that we could have you come in and have a conversation with us about, you know. So
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks.
so with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please like, subscribe, share, make comments, and remember that we are freaking losers. We need freaking views, guys. Come in
We are
here.
losers.
I'm desperate, man. How much
Good
pandering
description.
do I have to do? I mean,
You need a grovel and bag.
just
That's
grovel.
We need to
and
incentivize them. Let's have a contest next time. You know, give out a little gift or
Yeah,
something.
you
good
know,
idea.
I mean, shit, dude. Just say something in the comment section. I mean, heck. You know, so with that, I'm going to end the stream. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you have a good night, morning, evening, whatever it is. And thank you.
We got